Welcome back to NBA Cinema, guys. So we got to talk about Steph Curry and the situation with the Golden State Warriors, which ironically is one of the places that Jimmy Butler is interested in going to, but the Warriors aren't interested in giving up Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga, which seems to be the piece for any Warriors deal that um, would be made, right, to get anyone significant. And Jonathan Kuminga had a string of good games over the last month or so, but the Warriors have been really struggling. And Steph Curry, you could see him on the sideline in this video wandering off away from the huddle after he was subbed out that last time and really just being very frustrated. His emotions starting to show. And I got to think, nobody is happier than Clay Thompson right now. And not like he's hating on the team, but so much of the blame was placed on him that him declining was the reason that they weren't competing for championships. And you can't solely put that on him. I think Steve Kerr didn't do a good job developing certain players. It was important to develop James Wiseman. It was important to play and develop Jonathan Kuminga earlier. Um, he was selling the future of the team by just trying to win games right then. Sometimes you got to let young players get out there, mess up, have game action, to be ready when it's their time so that the transition is seamless. But now guys are in new roles. I like some of their pieces, but again, Steph Curry has been upset, and he spoke about it in the post game. Let's check it out.
You mentioned body language. This seemed to be as about outwardly frustrated as you've been in a game this season. I mean, in a sense, does it feel kind of like a low point, you might say, this season?
Yeah, I mean, back to back, no shows pretty much. And the hard part is like these are winnable games against teams that, for whatever reason, are around the same standings, but around the same place in the standings, and come in and have games against us. Even Miami, they played a double overtime game last night and came in here and whooped us. So for all the reasons, yeah, it's just not a great feeling. You have nothing to show for it, nothing really to kind of latch onto. It's like, oh, we're doing this great. If we can only, it seems like both sides of the ball are struggling. They're probably connected. Just if you make shots, usually your confidence goes up, your belief that you can win the game goes up. It helps you play defense. But once you lose that spirit, it's glaring how bad we can be at times. So you got to be able to kind of fight through
that. How do you think this team just gets better offensively? That seems to kind of, I mean, that's 2 straight games under 100 points.
Honestly, I have no idea.
How concerning?
We're going to try to figure it out,
yeah.
But I don't have an answer right now.
I mean, how big a concern is that I mean, you don't seem to have an answer?
Well, I mean, making shots, you can talk about that, but how much of that do you really control? I think tonight we created decent shots. I mean, they went on multiple runs and they only scored 114. You feel like, all right, you make a couple shots, it changes momentum, you're back in the game, but that's Monday morning quarterback and living in fantasy land. Of like, oh, if this would have happened, we've had too many nights like that. So I don't know what the answer is on what we need to do differently to make shots, or what we need to do differently to sustain, quality possessions over the course of the game. But I mean, if I did, hopefully it wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Steph in particular you mentioned the word deflated. He seemed deflated. I mean, obviously he's not unconfident offensively, but it does kind of seem to feel like this slump, the team slump is weighing on him. I mean, are you seeing that?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it with Steph, and he's continued to be brilliant night after night. But at his core, he's a winner. He's a champion. He wants to compete at the highest level. We just saw it a few months ago in Paris. The best of the best, and he takes over the fourth quarter when everything's on the line. That's who he is. That's what he lives for. And so he is really struggling with the emotion of, not being competitive right now. He probably hasn't had to deal with this since his I don't know, his first couple of years in the league. So he's definitely struggling with it.
This brings back a conversation that's been going on for a while about Steve Kerr. When you talk about him inheriting Mark Jackson's guys, Mark Jackson is the one who took the risk to allow Steph and Clay to play the way that they played, but also the roster they were building out, going to find a Draymond Green in the second round. I think they drafted Harrison Barnes in that draft class. Started off his career pretty good, but the way they had that roster, Andre Iguodala, I think they had Leandro Barbosa in that first championship, Sean Livingston, the mid-range king, but also a great defender, and he could run the point, but was big enough to guard wings and perimeter players, guard the 1 through the 3. So you're looking at the skeleton of this team, and the other guys not being the same, and still trying to play Steph. Getting up all those threes and him just going game busters. Yes, that's what we watched and that's what we enjoyed. And that was, the biggest part, obviously, is having the superstar like Steph, and then you build around that. But um, only person that's, really left from all that is Draymond Green at this point. And um, I don't think in the interim, or I can use a better word, in the meantime, when they were winning those titles, I don't think the young guys was being used the proper way, and young talent wasn't being developed. Uh, out of all the rookies that he didn't play, he played pods the most. It seems like Steve Kerr only plays you if you can shoot 3 pointers, and they needed to play a different way. You look at the tree he comes from, like with Greg Popovich and those guys, as far as coaching, and obviously he played under Phil Jackson as well. But I'm talking about like his coaching career coming under Greg Popovich's tree. One of the things you look at how they developed a young Kawhi Leonard, going from a defensive player into an offensive juggernaut. Um, they found Tony Parker, Ginobili late in drafts, and those guys become big time star players. Um, and Tim Duncan, as he aged, the team went from like, it was Tim for most of his prime, but Tony Parker started to take more of an offensive leadership role. And just the way they built their teams to always stay competitive for the duration of Duncan's career. I don't think Steve Kerr has had that approach. If you look at somebody like Kaminga, you would look at his talent. Um, you just look at how talented he is, and you would see his talent. And I'm just speaking talent, like a Kawhi Leonard. You would see him that way. Not saying he would become that type of player, but it's up to that organization. He was one of the most important draft picks they had. Um, James Wiseman not getting time and then becoming a journeyman. You needed that 7'1" uh big who had shot blocking potential, could finish above the rim. You needed to find a way to make some of these things work because superstars start to age, and um again, everybody wanted to blame all this on Klay Thompson, but I'm not a big believer in Steve Kerr when he has to make adjustments. Not to discredit everything he did, but he made some questionable decisions with the Olympic team. The man couldn't find time for Jason Tatum to play basketball, which is wild to me. There's not a collection of players that should stop Jason Tatum from getting any minutes at any point. And so you think about that, and you think about that with his own roster. I think we're just starting to see who Steve Kerr is a coach is as a coach, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till next time.